Previously on Dark Side of the Ring.
There would have never been TNA wrestling without Jeff Jarrett.
Jeff Jarrett is not only a longtime professional wrestler, but he's a third-generation promoter.
He's done everything in wrestling, but it was all with the eye on owning the company.
In 2001, Jeff Jarrett and his father, Jerry, founded TNA.
The early days of TNA, our biggest thing was we had to find out a path to survival.
They were mixing traditional wrestling with sports entertainment, with outrageous comedy, always teetering on the edge of disaster.
What do you think, I'm spanking my monkey?
We could do whatever we wanted to do.
I wanted to take a little bit from everybody, but I had a vision for what I wanted the company to be.
Though TNA's early years were marked by financial struggles, Jerry Jarrett's bitter departure, and the loss of Jeff's wife, Jill, the company's challenges are far from over.
There's somewhat of a pattern between Jeff's story and TNA's story in that they get knocked down and they still get back up.
The journey that I had traveled, I never dreamed in my wildest dreams this set of circumstances would go down to take my fingerprints off of the brand. When things went down, me and several others' heads rolled.
In 2002, just weeks after its first pay-per-view event, TNA lost its funding, forcing founder Jeff Jarrett to seek new investors, Bob and Janice Carter and their company Panda Energy. But the deal comes with one small catch.
Who is Dixie Carter?
Dixie Carter.
Dixie Carter.
Dixie Carter was the president of TNA when I joined. You know, was the daughter of Bob Carter.
When Panda came along, they took majority and they took financial control. And I understood that. I had a decision. Do I want to stay alive or do I want 100% of nothing? So Dixie was named more or less as a figurehead president. She was kind of the face of her father's investment. But I was still the single largest shareholder in the company when they came on. I had the most to gain or lose in all decisions.
Dixie was a very charming Southern belle. Super warm and friendly, and she didn't know shit about pro wrestling. So there was a lot of chatter that the Jarretts had found themselves a money mark.
The money mark is the person who is such a fan or so easily swayed, they will put up all their money just to be involved in this.
Did Dixie know wrestling? No. But she showed up every day in that office. She tried to get involved. She tried to learn.
You know, in my position, it's my responsibility, really it's my duty to keep people focused and motivated.
As long as she stays out of the way and signs the checks and lets the professionals handle the wrestling in, everything will be fine.
The way I look at it, people that want a TNA to survive and thrive, they should be happy that it stayed afloat because her family invested in it.
At the end of the day, what does the business do? We come here to make money. The promotion always comes first. We wanted to continue to grow as fast as we could, and we were doing exactly that. 2004, 2005, the brand was really picking up momentum. With the right talent, the right network, the right time slot, we were really clicking. And then when I heard that Kurt Angle was going to be available, and I said, if we can get him, TNA would really, really grow to another level.
Kurt had just come off a successful run in WWE. He was world champ multiple times. He was one of the hottest things in the business.
There really was nothing else to prove over there. And I saw a company on the rise. It was right here, TNA.
Just look at the lineage and the pedigree he brings to the table. He was an Olympic gold medalist. He personified total nonstop action. I knew he wasn't happy with WWE. Me and Dixie had a couple of phone calls. I knew that, okay, this is a Bob Carter decision. And Bob asked me, sell me on Kurt Angle. And I said, what's the name of our company, Bob? I said, it's Total Nonstop Action. I said, if you want a wrestling machine, that's what we're getting in Kurt Angle. This was like me handing off the baton. The day we signed Kurt Angle, we had our guy.
Can you believe it? Kurt Angle's in the Impact Zone!
When Kurt Angle made his debut, it's when Samoa Joe was holding the belt, and the energy between Kurt Angle's face and Samoa Joe in the ring, it was incredible. And I'm cutting this with such excitement. Kurt gets in there, headbutt,
Oh my God!
knocks Joe out.
Holy big slam!
And my God, the crowd erupted.
Man, everybody's going crazy!
Kurt Angle came in to beat the shit out of the whole world.
He's got the belt in his hand!
I'm on a tight shot of Kurt Angle. All of a sudden, in the background, Samoa Joe rises behind him, bloody, and Kurt Angle doesn't know that he's behind him. It felt so real. That validated us on every single level. Kurt Angle coming there legitimized that TNA was for real.
It was one of those moments that the way the people responded was exactly the way we wanted them to.
Kurt Angle, welcome to TNA!
He's just somebody to strive to be. He's a wonderful leader who sets the bar so high.
Where he was at in his career, his style, and being able to work with different talents, everything that went with it. He identifies the brand better than any single talent. When those chants would start to ring out, it was in a lot of ways validation. I just knew the company is going to a different level. We had a video game, we had action figures, we had licensees, our international sales were booming. Yes, we had some great talent acquisitions, but his was at the very top.
TNA draws fans with a combination of familiar star power and a unique high-flying style unlike anything fans have ever seen before.
It's 4 distinct divisions: heavyweights, tags, X division, and knockouts.
Long before there was the women's wrestling revolution in WWE, there was the knockouts division.
They started putting focus on serious women's matches instead of lingerie bullshit matches.
It was women's professional wrestling presented in main event slots with main event talent, with main event storylines.
And the cornerstone of that division was a young lady by the name of Awesome Kong.
A lot of people ask me, like, what do you do? I be like, I throw bitches.
Oh no! Uh-oh. Go! Got her up on her shoulders. She just breaks her back. It's hard to walk.
That's what I do. I pick bitches up and I throw them. My name is Kia Stevens. You know me as Awesome Kong. When I got hired to TNA, I felt like I was home.
7, a 3-point stance!
I want to dedicate myself and my skills to making this company the #1 company in the world.
Oh no, she's got her up. Here it is! Sit out powerbomb!
There was a point in the late 2000s when our knockouts were the highest rated matches. We have to have them as our main events on our weekly show because they're drawing the highest numbers. I mean, numbers don't lie.
The fans wanted this. The fans were demanding this to respect women's wrestling. It's amazing what women can do when there's no glass ceiling.
Jeff was very firm on the fact that each one of those divisions can headline a show, and it did. And each one of those divisions is important and has stars, and it did.
This perfect storm of magic was happening, and that 6-sided ring was ours. It represented us. It was our thing.
TNA has just gone 2 hours enough!
Jeff called me. They're going to expand it into a 2-hour show. We're going to need some more producers. I said, okay, I'll do it. We can do this, right?
One more time for me, TNA!
They put all the pieces together in the right places and started to have a vision. The ratings were doing pretty well. TNA became a viable #2 in the country.
Outwardly, everything's going right, but inwardly in my personal life, it was just a real tough time. I lost my wife to breast cancer. I don't know if it's the paradoxical side, the dichotomy in that my personal life at times has really hit some real bottoms, and my professional life had some real peaks, and vice versa. I had a responsibility to take care of myself and my family, but I also knew my entire life I knew how to put on a mask. And so for me to survive emotionally, I'm here to go to work. That's what I'm here to do.
Wrestling's like showbiz. If you get something and you lose it, you're afraid you can't get it back.
You gotta remember, his money was on the line too, so he had to keep the train rolling.
I think he was trying to lead by example, but suppressing. He was just trying to keep the team believing, keep us running through those walls for Jeff, and we did.
When you're in charge of a television production, there's no off season, there's no off days, except in this case, it can't be healthy.
If you don't go through the grieving process, the grief is always there, whether you know it or not.
In a lot of ways, I look at the industry and know that it's the one thing that's always been there for me. I never gave a second thought that a big power play was coming. This business, they say that fame changes folks. The real reality is fame doesn't change folks, it reveals folks. As the ratings continue to go up and Dixie's title of president of TNA Entertainment grew, she wanted more. I had a video game call, and one of the guys on the call said, "Hey Jeff, I don't think you have to be on the next call. Dixie told us that she'll take your place." And I said, "She did." When I hung up that call, I knew Dixie began her strategy.
With Jeff Jarrett focused on his family following the passing of his wife, Jill, Dixie Carter becomes increasingly influential within TNA.
Dixie was omnipresent. She was out signing autographs, taking pictures with fans. She was always around.
Dixie naturally wanted more people to recognize her, and nobody was talking about Dixie Carter. She writes checks.
Well, I am a behind-the-scenes type of person. I like to keep the focus on those great guys and girls that are in the ring.
Dixie was the president of a company in a male-dominated business, and the next highest-ranking female in that office when I joined it was Caroline, our receptionist. Like many women, multiple times I'm sure she's dealt with misogyny, she's dealt with people that dismissed her simply based off of gender.
I did respect Dixie because she was a woman in wrestling, so I wanted her to succeed more than anybody.
I love the fact that she kind of rolled the dice and invested in TNA. So I got lots of love for Dixie Carter personally.
But there came a time that she really got tired of Jeff and his crew getting all the credit.
Whether you liked Jeff's vision or didn't like Jeff's vision, he had a vision. And Jeff also had a fiscal responsibility. I think that if Dixie wanted something, she was going to have something.
They were trying to get stars. They were trying to get people that were established.
Now viewed as WWE's main competition, TNA begins attracting bigger names, eager to take advantage of the opportunity in more ways than one.
Obviously, WWE is well rehearsed, it is well laid out. TNA kind of gave the talent more freedom to play in the ring.
Steel post, springboard.
More fly by the seat of your pants, more chaotic. It was about entertaining and having fun.
Some of those guys that came over from WWE really were assets that helped us make other people. And I think some of them just showed up.
The ex-WWE guys are coming down here for a paid vacation to lay on their ass and not give a shit.
There were some business decisions that were very sketchy at that time, no doubt.
We have the permission to do anything we damn well please.
There were many stories with Dixie getting, seduced, should I say, by the shams of the behind the scenes in wrestling. I'll never forget a time when I was sitting next to her and Kevin Nash at the bar at Universal Studios. Kevin is just schmoozing her because his contract is up.
There's Nash sitting right next to her, pouring her another glass of wine. Here you go, Dixie. Let me tell you again all the things you need to know.
Dixie, you know what I can't wait for? And she's like, what? I can't wait until we become number one and we can go tell Vince, go yourself. And that's what Dixie wanted to hear.
They all, in their own ways, buttered her up, took advantage of her, whatever the case.
everybody in pro wrestling behind the scenes is working somebody else. There is no sincerity for the most part.
She's swimming with carny sharks, and she's doused herself in blood before she got in the water.
As Dixie Carter focuses her attention on high-profile stars, the wrestlers who built TNA begin to feel overlooked.
I do think they reached a point in time with bringing in so many ex-WWE guys that it certainly didn't help the morale backstage.
And it kind of felt like she didn't appreciate her homegrown talent. Kurt is making about a little over $1 million a year. Kurt Angle deserved more than $1 million a year, in my opinion. Can you tell me that I'm not worth 1/10 of Kurt Angle? So I asked for a raise, politely. Let them know that as you break it down, I make less than a manager at McDonald's. The reply that I got was, we do not dispute any of the points you made. However, we cannot pay you that sum at this time. There was more than 2 TNA knockouts who held the TNA title that had to moonlight in, I would say, very blue-collar jobs. One worked at a bar. She would be on TV, and the customers would say, "Isn't that you?" And she would say, "Yes. May I take your order?" Dixie knows that we're struggling, and she's still hiring people in front of us. If you putting all these other folks on a pedestal instead of your own people, we're never gonna make it, you know? You gotta believe in us the way we're believing in us.
But with Dixie serving as president and Jeff overseeing creative, many within TNA are left unsure of who was really in charge.
I assumed that Dixie was the boss, but there wasn't a clear line. It felt more like Dixie was in charge, but Jeff ran the thing.
The only thing I knew about Jeff Jarrett is that he carried a guitar and he used to work with Chyna, my hero. That was it. I didn't even know he started TNA. And because Dixie liked to promote herself, he would tell everybody who the hell she was. She was Dixie Carter and she was the mother boss.
I always either called Jeff J-Double or I'd call him boss. And Dixie pulled me aside and said, "You are not to call Jeff boss." This is when I'm starting to realize how deep the power struggle is.
At the time, the creative team is myself and Jeff and Dutch Mantel. There was never jealousy, there was never fighting. We were all contributing, like literally as a team. Things stopped going well when Dixie would cross over into creative. That was kind of out of bounds when it came to Jeff.
I'd heard the little inklings from Russo that, hey, maybe we should do this or maybe we should do that creative, and I'd press Vince, why are you saying that? Well, Dixie wants that.
Jeff would make her feel like, you know nothing about the wrestling business, keep your mouth shut. He didn't say that, but that's what he was getting across.
The thing is, you don't want to fill a creative room with all people that are going to agree with you or see things the same way. The problem is you've got black and you've got white. Sometimes the worst possible thing to do is gray. I think it led sometimes to a disjointed show.
I've never eaten marijuana in my whole life.
Dixie and Jeff are constantly butting heads. Dutch and I are always in the middle of that. When Dixie had an issue with Jeff, she would come to me.
I think at some point Vince Russo became a lightning rod. Anything that was different, anything that wasn't good, he was going to get blamed for.
And you could see right there.
You know, like seriously, my critics, sometimes, honestly, you could just freaking blow me.
In wrestling, man, where passions fuel everything, hate is the strongest passion of them all. Each one is vying for control and top position. There's no way that's gonna work.
I think there's lots of people who spent a lot of time trying to convince Dixie that Jeff was holding the company back and that they needed to go in a different direction.
I had heard rumblings that there was tension between Dixie and Jeff for various things that eventually blew up much worse later with the Karen Angle situation.
Karen Angle was Kurt Angle's wife.
There were always parties after the TNA TV tapings. And then you would always start hearing that Jeff and Karen were there and Kurt was not.
You know, there was always the underlying, hey, you wonder what's going on there.
The word on the street was that Karen had left Kurt for Jeff. They were having an affair.
The perception was this was something illicit happening. At a corporate level, that's just a no-no.
Here's the boss and his number one talent, and you, like, with his wife, I can understand. I don't know exactly why. You gotta ask her. Karen don't hide nothing. She'll tell you. She'll tell you.
This is your first time doing an interview like this?
I've never talked about it. Ever. Ever. I've never felt I needed to discuss it or that it was anyone's business. But this is a part of Jeff's story, and it needs to be made right. Things are never what they seem. I'm here to set the record straight. I will say this, the only thing that's thrown me off so far since we started was you saying that people thought Kurt and I were still together.
How do you want to be introduced? That you're the wife of Jeff Jarrett?
Yeah, that's what I am. People thinking that marriage got broken up by a love affair couldn't be more wrong. Kurt and I were legally separated in 2006. I was pregnant and living in a townhome with my daughter. At the time, Kurt was going through some very dark days. He had been released from WWE. TNA was his only other option at that time, and he really needed me to pretend we were the perfect couple and family. But in reality, it couldn't have been more broken. I wanted things to be good for my kids. I thought, okay, well, if he gets this job and he does this, like, he will get his life on track. And that wasn't the reality.
When Kurt came to TNA, I don't want to give the impression he's just some, wild rock and roll lifestyle guy that's doing drugs on purpose. He'd broken his neck in the Olympics, and my God, he was just injuries everywhere. After every match that Kurt Angle did in TNA, you'd go back to the dressing trailers, and he'd be laid out on the floor with an ice pack on his shoulder, ice pack on his neck, ice pack on his back. But then, the very next day, red light camera came on, he'd do the same thing again.
Unbelievable! Oh my God!
So Karen came along as part of the package to get Kurt to the show and back to the hotel, and it worked for a while.
Kurt was having more bad days than good days. I'm trying to say that as nicely as possible. And you could tell in Kurt's eyes at work how bad he was struggling. It was no secret. It goes without saying the amount of pressure that goes on. He was our top star. The disease of addiction is undefeated, battling it alone. I looked at Karen as the top talent's wife, was so glad that she was there supporting him, and he was motivated to get things turned around. And so that was, the extent of our relationship, if you could call it that.
Kurt and Karen would show up with the kids. Kurt even called me on the phone because he was trying to get Karen on TV.
You know what, you skank? I know the real reason you're here! I have no idea how the they convinced me to be on camera.
And here they go!
But I did it.
You can take that gold medal and you can stick it where the sun doesn't shine.
I think I let a lot of frustrations out.
Oh! She just poured the champagne.
I think their thoughts were, if Karen's here, maybe she can keep him straight. I definitely really gave it a shot and tried. But I think there was so much damage. I became angry, I became resentful, and I left. I can assure you that Dixie Carter, Jeff Jarrett, Vince Russo, all knew the reality of my marriage with Kurt Angle. It was over. When Jeff called me to convince me to stay with Kurt, wanting to check, is there anything they can do? Actually recited some scripture to me and talked to me about his wife that had passed away. That was the first phone conversation that I had with Jeff Jarrett. And I can remember all I could think was, they don't make men like this.
There came a time when Karen had had enough. And that's when the divorce proceedings started. She went home and was no longer on the show, and I didn't see her from that point forward for months. And kind of one day out of the blue, I get this call, and, hey, how are you?
I wasn't looking for anything. I just wanted to live. Jeff was so full of life and so happy. I loved being around him. There was just a good energy. We began to develop a friendship.
When I knew that Kurt was seeing other people, I'm like, okay, let's see where this goes.
Backstage, I don't think anyone truly had a grasp of what was going on because your only point of reference was what you could see with your own eyes. That's what started leading to a lot of the problems between Jeff and Dixie, and that's when the power struggle really started to play out.
When I was real young, I woke up every Saturday morning and watched my dad on television. And I want to follow in his footsteps and be the best wrestler I can.
At the end of the day, life happens. I lost my wife to breast cancer. I'm a single dad raising 3 kids. It's time for me to move on. And I did.
This was never an affair. This was 2 people falling in love and bettering their lives.
I'm a lucky man because I've got to fall in love not once but twice. I looked at it as my personal life's my personal life and my business life is my business life. But the rumor and innuendo was so spun out of control in that the sneaky hiding around nonsense, it just was never in the equation. We hid it from no one or nobody within TNA, outside of TNA. Everyone knew. From Kurt to the creative team, everyone knew. But then, there's Dixie Carter. She's the only one that didn't know. And I think she was embarrassed once she did find out.
I think Jeff felt so comfortable at one point that he had a party and he invited Dixie to come over to it.
And Dixie goes, rings the bell, and Jeff and Karen are hosting the party together.
To me, she was elated. Oh, I'm so happy. No issue, no anger, no red flags that I detected from her at all.
And I get a call from Dixie, and she's cutting a hellacious promo on me. How did you not tell me Jeff and Karen are together? I've always heard about Dixie looking for reasons to send Jeff home, and this, he just gave her a reason.
Because Dixie was the last to know that might have pissed her off. And then somebody, one of the boys or someone in the office told the dirt sheets.
James out of Orlando, you're on protection, James. Hi.
I just wanted to call you up and let you know, man. Yeah, Karen Angle, she's actually living with Jeff Jarrett now. And Dixie is.
Hold on. Whoa.
And Dixie is upset, man.
And boom, that gave her the foothold.
This was her reason, her excuse to put Jeff to the side once and for all and be able to run the company on her own.
I think she'd been waiting for the moment. And when the time came and I gave her the rope, she snatched it.
Jeff Jarrett, the delusional optimist that always looks at things in a positive way, thought Dixie Carter would actually be happy for him. Lost his wife, has 3 daughters that he has to take care of, found love a second time. How rare is that? But instead, what did she do? She nuked his whole life.
I was given documents sent from Panda Energy that had me removed and said that I was no longer executive producer, no longer the head of creative. And I get the lawyer calls and, hey, Jeff, we're gonna send you home with pay. We just gotta let things subside and all this kind of nonsense that I knew exactly what was going on.
The bottom line is there was a personal situation that affected the company, and it put all of us in a very difficult position. Jeff was placed on leave, both as a talent and in his capacity with the company.
In those early days of the formation of TNA, it had been such an uphill climb and struggle, and it just felt like the walls literally began to crumble around me before my very eyes. It didn't have to happen. It really didn't have to happen. But that's, you know, it's what ego will do.
It was a power struggle and a power grab, and it was shock through the locker room. The heart and soul of wrestling, of this company, is now being removed from this company. So what's gonna happen now?
Despite remaining a major stakeholder in the company, Jeff Jarrett is frozen out of TNA's day-to-day operations.
Jeff was heartbroken, crushed. And that's where it's so sad. It was his whole life in the company he started. I apologized over and over again and felt like I destroyed his life. I still feel responsible. I had multiple conversations with him where I was like, we just need to end it. And he just was like, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I looked at her and I said, do you not think I've already really thought this through?
You would think that someone being sent home could destroy a relationship that had just started, but it didn't. It only made the two of us stronger. Not many women can say, my husband risked everything to be with me. My husband risked absolutely everything to be with me.
This is what happens in the TNA offices.
Oh, 2 in the morning.
It's about half an hour before we open the doors to let everyone in.
From 2002 till September 2009. Those 7+ years were my vision of TNA. That's my baby. And 2009, from January to September, it was the most successful ratings run that TNA had ever had. In September is when Dixie pulled the power play. Dixie wanted to make her father proud, and I understood that better than anybody. She's not the first, and certainly won't be the last, that would look at this industry and say, I can do this, I can run this. It looks real easy. But boy, oh boy, she found out different.
Now firmly in control of TNA, Dixie Carter wastes no time putting her stamp on the company.
When Dixie sidelined Jeff, she empowered Vince Russo to have complete, total creative control.
And then they fired Dutch. And Dutch was Jeff's right-hand man and had been actually the backbone of the wrestling ideas of the creative team.
It was clearly a cleansing of, Jeff Jarrett aligned people.
This is what Vince Russo actually does.
Get ready, you sons of bitches! It didn't really change without Jeff there, because I always did my own thing. Yeah, Dixie, that's not going to be a problem.
For the first time, he had nobody policing his work. He had the free ride.
If Vince Russo was there, there would be 5 minutes of wrestling in a 120-minute show.
Bro, we can't do pro wrestling.
Bro, what I do, I go in the other direction, bro. And that's why it works.
Every time we had something going, Russo has to put Shark Boy in a fish tank or something on our television to make it look like it's a goddamn hallucination.
Jim Cornette to this day does not understand this is a television show. This is not a house show in Louisville, Kentucky.
It was frustrating to see the guys beating their bodies up in the ring, and this moron thinks he's writing goddamn daytime television. Dixie thinks I'm not behind creative. Russo's mad, so then they fired me. And what the did I do?
Did you ever make a terroristic threat to Vince Russo?
Well, it depends on what you call terroristic.
The letter was, and I quote, "If I could kill Vince Russo and get away with it, I would kill him." You're gonna kill somebody over professional wrestling? Are you kidding me?
So they reported me to the FBI because he knows that I legitimately despise him, because he's a moron and he's in over his head. You could see it coming down the road, that this was the beginning of the end.
It's a hot mess. Is the company over? Like, how do we survive this?
Dixie Carter is smarter than what people give her credit for. She wanted the power. She wanted to call the shots. And she definitely took advantage of the situation.
To usher TNA into a new era, Dixie Carter devises an ambitious plan. To pull it off, she'll have to turn to someone she thought she no longer needed.
Within a month, I got a call. "Hey, Jeff, Dixie wants you to go to Tampa to meet with Hulk Hogan." I was surprised. It was a very revealing moment. Had she had the real confidence to be the CEO, and she had done it solo, she knew without question that she needed Jeff to go, or she wouldn't have had me there.
In his mind, Mr. Positive, eternal optimist, he thought Dixie was bringing him back in.
Dixie Carter never wanted me out of TNA. She wanted Jeff to work for Dixie. You can roll over and play dead and die a slow death, or you can get up and fight like hell. I'm gonna put on a game face. I said, hell yes.
He had to support 3 daughters. He definitely had to play the game. Dixie dangled the carrot and he grabbed it.
Months after sidelining Jeff Jarrett, Dixie Carter turns to him for help with a high-stakes meeting with Hulk Hogan.
So me and Dixie, we got on the plane and flew down to Tampa, walk in, and Hogan's there. And then to my surprise, so was Eric Bischoff.
When I first heard about TNA, frankly, I was very, I don't want to say negative, but I didn't have a lot of high hopes. And let's be clear, the only reason that I ended up meeting Dixie Carter was because of Hulk Hogan. I'm Eric Bischoff, formerly of TNA, formerly president of WCW, formerly general manager of WWE. In other words, I can't hold a job. There are a lot of parallels between where WCW was in 1994 and where TNA was in 2009. Both companies needed that high-profile, well-recognized media star, and just like Hulk was able to contribute to WCW in our success in '94, that same opportunity existed for TNA. I think Dixie would have much preferred to not have to deal with Eric Bischoff, but Hulk was pretty adamant. Hulk liked to be surrounded by people that he trusted. Hulk obviously trusted me. Hulk Hogan had real issues with Vince Russo, professionally, creatively.
Hey, let me tell you who doesn't give a shit about this company. That goddamn politician Hulk Hogan.
Hulk made it clear that the only way he was coming in is if I came with him to protect his character, to work on his individual storylines, because Vince Russo was a fraud. But I was confident that I could manage it on a day-to-day basis, and she really wanted Hulk.
You know, I'd worked for Eric at WCW, and Hulk, I had 25, 30-year history. In the meeting, it revealed to me immediately that he doesn't have a clue about TNA wrestling. Like, zero clue or context of who or what we are. I always said, with a caveat, if he stays in his lane and does what he does best, and that is a mouthpiece.
Look at all the Hulkamaniacs! Can you hear him, Mean Gene?
If he's out playing that role for the brand, it's a win. Anything else is a loss.
I never was really sure where Jeff fit into the equation. I knew that he had some equity in the TNA organization, but it was pretty obvious that there was a strained relationship between Dixie and Jeff. That was one of the really unusual things right away. From my perspective, at least, Dixie Carter was running the show.
Oh boy. From the time Hogan, Bischoff came on board, I knew that my time had come to an end at TNA. I'll just say that I think Dixie was very nervous because she knew I knew what she did. I know what you did to myself. I know what you did to my 3 little girls. I know what you're doing to the brand. She knew I knew.
The one, the only,
Jeff was used for a meeting and then sent back home.
I'd like to introduce you to my new business partner, Dixie Carter.
Dixie loved when Hulk came on board. She took that as her own signing. I am that powerful.
Your first thought is, it's Hulk Hogan. It's the biggest name this industry's ever seen, and he's choosing TNA. This can only be a positive thing, right?
When I heard that Hogan and Bischoff were coming in, I thought it was going to be a disaster. Dixie was being manipulated by Master Carnies.
TNA is going to be the #1 company in the world.
Vince Russo and Jeff, they protected Dixie for years. For years. And she didn't know it. They protected her from herself. I think she thought, oh, I'm going to bring Hulk Hogan in here and everyone's going to praise me. Oh, look what Dixie did. Look what the Dixie did.
Dixie thought she had seen the last of Jeff. Well, the games had only just begun.
She wanted to bring in Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff. To think me and Eric Bischoff could work together? Eric Bischoff is dead to me.
This is going to end up being a disaster, because it always is.
Slight change of plans here, ladies and gentlemen.
The changes were drastic and severe all at once.
The company went into a financial death spiral, but nobody's going to tell the emperor.
Dixie wanted the show to revolve around her.
Not on my watch. I knew that I had to make progress quick, or the wheels were going to fall off. The reality was the progression of my disease was in full force, and I had no idea. I was headed for the biggest valley of my life.
Dangerous individuals whose motivations extended beyond mere commerce. The Ring doorbell footage, now seamlessly accessible through Jimmy Pearson's unlocked phone, corroborated and powerfully amplified the insights gleaned from the text messages, providing crucial, irrefutable visual confirmation of the mysterious individual. As we were looking through the Ring footage, we found a vehicle arriving at his house and a female getting out of the vehicle and coming to the front door. This visual confirmation provided undeniable proof of the mystery woman's physical presence at the residence around the estimated time of the murder, leaving no room for doubt. Crucially, And decisively, the woman captured by the camera was distinctly not Tylia McDaniel, visually differentiating her from the previous primary suspect. Investigators are uncertain who the woman arriving is, but one thing is clear: she is not Tylia McDaniel. The differences between the individual in the footage and the known appearance of Tylia were apparent and definitive. From stature to facial features, they're two different size people. They look very different, and it was clear that that was not who we were looking at. This stark visual evidence effectively eliminated Tylia McDaniel from being the direct perpetrator of this particular crime, removing her from the primary suspect list with absolute certainty. Ms. McDaniel was no longer really on our radar as the immediate prime suspect, marking a decisive pivot in the ongoing investigation, turning all resources to this new, enigmatic figure, Paris Royal Natasha, with Tylia McDaniel demonstrably out of the picture as the immediate perpetrator. The full focus of the investigative team narrowed onto the intriguing alias, Paris Royal Natasha, a name that immediately triggered professional suspicion due to its theatrical, almost performative quality, hinting at a manufactured identity. Paris Royal Natasha, that's not a typical name that we tend to hear, so we had a feeling that that was likely not a real name. This shrewd observation redirected their efforts from a moniker to the underlying digital breadcrumbs, the verifiable data that would unmask the true identity of the person behind pseudonym. So, one of the things that we did was we did a search, a law enforcement search of the phone number itself, leveraging specialized tools and databases to cross-reference the number with official records, a cornerstone of modern digital forensics. This crucial technical step bore fruit almost immediately, providing the significant breakthrough they needed. We were able to associate that phone number with Natasha Rose Tate. This confirmed the individual's true legal identity, providing a tangible, verifiable link to a real person, a critical shift from alias to concrete suspect. The next step was definitive visual confirmation, eliminating any remaining doubt. We utilized her driver license photo, which we were able to use to compare to the person we saw in the Ring camera video. The match was positive and definitive, securing a solid, irrefutable identification, giving a face and a name to the individual captured on the doorbell camera. The video footage from the Ring camera meticulously captured Natasha Tate's arrival and her subsequent, highly revealing departure, offering an unvarnished, time-stamped timeline of her activities at Jimmy Pearson's home in the crucial hours around the murder. She was wearing like a dark-colored sweatshirt and jeans and was carrying a bag with her. Her approach to the house was direct and unhesitating, an air of professional nonchalance. When she went to the door, Mr. Pearson greeted her and then they went inside. The initial contact appeared amicable, fitting the narrative of an arranged date for escort services, betraying no immediate signs of overt hostility or imminent danger. The timeline was now being painstakingly constructed by detectives, minute by meticulous minute, aligning with the earlier estimate of death. After an interval of 2 hours later, around 2:42 a.m., the footage shows Natasha leaving the home. But her departure was markedly different from her arrival, imbued with a profoundly telling change in demeanor and possessions, signaling a completed act. She comes back out and has the same red duffel bag in her hand, and it appears to be extremely full and heavy. The contents had clearly changed dramatically, now laden with substantial weight, far beyond personal effects. Moreover, a critical visual detail emerged from careful analysis. In her right hand, it looks like she has maybe some reusable shopping bags or something else. Not items that she had originally shown up with, but things that came from inside the home. This strongly suggested an emptying of the victim's valuable possessions, rather than merely her own belongings, indicating systematic theft. The brazenness of her actions was further underscored by multiple trips back and forth from the house to her vehicle, methodically carting away stolen goods. She makes several trips of carrying bags and boxes to her vehicle, put things in the vehicle. Another chilling and highly incriminating detail emerged from careful frame-by-frame analysis. It appeared she was wearing gloves, which was odd given the casual interaction. The deliberate use of gloves indicated a premeditated attempt to avoid leaving forensic evidence at the crime scene, a stark departure from a spontaneous crime of passion, suggesting a calculated effort to conceal her involvement. The meticulousness of her removal of items, the systematic plunder, perfectly aligned with the initial chaotic and ransacked crime scene discovered by Tony Morell. It was very clear that by little condition we found the house. It looked like it had been ransacked. This confirmed the dual nature of the crime, not just murder, but also a thorough and methodical robbery designed for maximum financial gain. Then, Natasha was looking for any value she could sell. The motivation of pure greed, unvarnished and ruthless, became painfully apparent as the overriding driver of her actions, overshadowing any other potential factors. This appears suspicious given the larger context of finding Mr. Pearson deceased. A detective understated with dry wit, highlighting the obvious connection between the robbery and the murder, transforming simple curiosity into a full-blown homicide investigation. At this critical juncture, with Natasha Tate firmly established as the prime suspect. At that point, we're attempting to develop as much information about her as possible. Who is she? Are there any law enforcement contacts in the area with her? The chase was now truly on, fueled by digital evidence and the ticking clock of a fleeing fugitive. A routine search of police records for Natasha Tate's newly identified name, a standard, painstaking procedure once an identity is established, yielded an immediate and profound hit, a truly serendipitous piece of information that bordered on the miraculous for the investigation, tying together the perpetrator and the murder weapon with almost surgical precision. She had been involved in a traffic stop 12 minutes after leaving Mr. Pearson's home. The timing of the seemingly innocuous, routine traffic stop was nothing short of extraordinary for the homicide case, providing an almost instant, tangible connection between the suspect, a potential weapon, and the immediate aftermath of the brutal murder. The details meticulously documented in the traffic stop report were even more compelling, adding layers of damning, corroborating evidence. The officer noted that there was a purse that was open on the front passenger seat of Nastasia's car and that there was a revolver handgun that was sitting in plain view. This was no hidden weapon, carefully concealed. It was openly displayed, casually abandoned, perhaps in haste or a temporary lapse of caution born of stress or intoxication, thereby creating an unavoidable, permanent record. Her explanation for its possession, when questioned by the patrol officer, was convoluted and dubious, lacking any ring of truth. She explained she was in possession of the gun because she took it from a friend, and that's not legal to transfer a firearm. Recognizing the irregularity of the firearm's presence and its undocumented transfer, acting on standard procedure, the firearm was seized and placed into evidence by Milwaukee police. A crucial piece of physical evidence removed from circulation, secured, and documented in official channels. Crucially, at the time of the traffic stop, based solely on the information available to patrol officer, there was no reason to detain her for that specific infraction alone, and she was bafflingly allowed to go free, blissfully unaware of the grim destiny that awaited her just days later. However, to the homicide detectives now reviewing these cold, stark records, dissecting every detail of the patrol officer's report with an almost feverish intensity, the implications were searingly clear, forming an almost irrefutable chain of undeniable evidence. A .38 caliber revolver, found openly in Natasha Tate's car, a mere 12 minutes after she was captured by the Ring camera footage leaving Jimmy Pearson's home, where he lay brutally dead from a bullet, identified as a .38 Special Slug. The two pieces of information, separated by only days of time, but united by cold, hard facts and compelling circumstantial detail, fit together with horrifying precision, forming an unmistakable pattern that pointed to one conclusion. Knowing that Officer Sanchez had seized a .38 caliber revolver from Nastasha the prior night, that immediately led me to believe that that was like their murder weapon. The logical jump, while still requiring forensic confirmation from ballistic experts, was instantaneous and profoundly impactful, marking the definitive moment where suspicion hardened into near certainty, transforming Nastasha Tate from a person of interest into the primary, undeniable suspect for murder. However, the clock was ticking, and with it, the critical element of time and distance now complicated their mission. Now, the suspect has about a 2-day leave on law enforcement, so they need to make up 2 days very quickly, because the longer this goes on, the more difficult it is they're going to be able to find it. The initial challenge of uncertainty had been replaced by the urgent imperative of pursuit, a race against the ever-increasing lead of a likely and potentially dangerous fugitive. Less than 48 hours into their relentless and meticulous investigation, a display of systematic deduction and swift action that exemplified dedicated law enforcement, homicide detectives had achieved what many could only dream of in the early stages of such a heinous crime. They had zeroed in on a concrete suspect in the brutal murder of Jimmy Pearson, an apparent escort named Nastasha Tate. The confluence of powerful digital evidence from the victim's phone and the Ring camera footage, combined with the incredibly timely and crucial detail of the traffic stop and the seized .38 caliber revolver, presented an almost airtight preliminary case, a robust foundation for an arrest. The next critical step, essential for irrefutable judicial proof, was to secure forensic confirmation of the weapon's direct link to the crime. They send the evidence gathered so far for forensic testing. We submitted the jacketed bullet that was recovered from Mr. Pearson's head. We submitted the firearm. The eagerly awaited ballistics results would either cement their theory with undeniable scientific certainty or, against all odds, send them back to square one. However, all objective indicators pointed overwhelmingly toward a definitive, conclusive match, a confirmation of their already solid suspicions. Simultaneously, police swiftly and legally obtained an arrest warrant for Nastasha, transforming her status from suspect to wanted fugitive and setting the stage for a desperate, cross-country manhunt. But Nastasha Tate proved to be an elusive quarry, demonstrating a practiced ability to evade detection and disappear into the labyrinthine anonymity of modern transient life, a skill honed by years of living outside conventional societal structures. The phone numbers that we had previously for her, we knew were no longer good. She was no longer using a classic tactic of a seasoned runner, severing her digital ties. Her professional background, working as an exotic dancer at a couple different nightclubs, gentlemen's clubs, suggested a lifestyle that required a certain fluidity and anonymity, making her particularly difficult to track through conventional means. Detectives diligently had detectives go to those different locations to see if we could find her. Vehicle: the Mercedes, a key identifier from the Ring footage, now known to be a recent acquisition, an object of her stated desire for shiny things. Alas, unfortunately, her vehicle was not found at any of those places. The investigation now faced its primary, urgent focus, distilled to a single critical and profoundly difficult question. So that became the primary focus of this investigation, is where is she at? The sheer scope of modern connectivity, however, a digital web that ensnares even the most careful, would ultimately prove to be her undoing, a double-edged sword for those who attempt to live in the shadows. Social media being such a large part of pretty much everybody's lives these days, detectives expertly leverage this ubiquitous digital landscape, knowing that even the most careful fugitives often leave telltale digital breadcrumbs. However small, they were able to locate Not only her escort page, but her private social media page, offering an unprecedented window into both her professional life and her deeply personal existence. These digital artifacts offered invaluable insights into Nastasia's life and, crucially, into her immediate concerns and plans. Intriguingly, her personal account indicated that even her own family members were expressing worry about her sudden disappearance, a subtle but significant sign that her current flight was unusual even for her typically transient life, exceeding prior patterns of lying low. One of the messages was left by her grandmother that said something similar to "what the heck? We were all very worried about you." This message became a crucial portal, opening a direct, if painful, line to her closest kin, a desperate appeal for her whereabouts that could potentially be exploited by law enforcement, appealing to a family's deep-seated worry. When investigators reached out to the worried grandmother, she proved instrumental, providing the essential familial link they desperately needed, ultimately connecting them in touch with Nastasia's mother. They quickly learned that Miss Tate's mother is Teresa Tate, and that she would be the person who would know where Nastasia Tate is if anybody knew. This was a significant breakthrough, bringing them closer to the fugitive than ever before, tapping into a fundamental, often unbreakable, bond between parent and child, however strained. When investigators finally went and spoke with Teresa Tate, she offered a profoundly poignant, if not tragic, narrative about her daughter's life, laying bare a history of struggle, disadvantage, and exploitation. She painted a pretty sad story of what Nastasia's life had been. The backstory, while in no way serving as an excuse for the heinous crime committed, offered a glimpse into a fractured, challenging existence that had undoubtedly shaped her choices. Had a pretty rough upbringing, couldn't read, couldn't write, had been introduced to prostitution at a fairly young age by a friend who she had kind of grown up with, who was a few years older. Her mother, with a heavy heart but commendable honesty, was brutally transparent about her daughter's dangerous world. She was very honest and upfront about, "Yeah, my daughter is associated with bad people. She's had multiple pimps. She has prosecuted herself." Throughout the country, Teresa also revealed her own desperate, ongoing attempts to rescue her daughter from this perilous path, a mother's relentless struggle against overwhelming odds. She'd been trying to help her really get out of this world for a long period of time, but because Nastasia did not want that help, their communication had broken down, a painful concession of maternal failure to reach her wayward child, now facing a far graver fate. Despite this fractured relationship and periods of strained communication, Teresa, driven by a deep, enduring maternal instinct, maintained a thread of contact, however tenuous. She revealed that Nastasia, ever secretive and evasive, would only tell her very little about where she was. She would meticulously avoid specific, traceable details, a practiced art of digital and physical concealment, developed from years of living outside conventional systems. She would never tell her anything specific. This was a recognizable pattern of behavior Teresa acknowledged. She said she's hidden in the past and laid low, but not really to this extent, indicating that this current flight was more desperate, more profound. The sheer geographical range of Nastasia's previous movements painted a daunting picture for law enforcement, emphasizing the global, anonymous nature of modern manhunts. Nastasia had spent time in Los Angeles, Minnesota, New York, Florida, Nevada, so really she could have been anywhere. This widespread transient lifestyle, born of a life lived outside conventional norms and marked by constant movement, made the pursuit exceptionally challenging, akin to finding a needle in a continent-sized haystack, requiring immense resources and sophisticated tracking. Before leaving, the detective made a crucial, empathetic overture to Teresa, planting a seed of hope for cooperation. When I left my business card and my phone number, and I told her, hey, if her daughter reached out to her, to let me know so that we could try to follow up, and she told her she would. This was a fragile but vital seed planted, trusting in a mother's underlying desire for a child's safety and eventual accountability. Even amidst grave criminal accusations, the appeal, subtly made, leaned on a hope that a mother's instinct might transcend fear and denial, offering a lifeline for both Nastasha and for justice. To bolster their increasingly urgent cross-country search, detectives wisely enlisted the formidable resources of the U.S. Marshal Service, known for their unparalleled expertise in tracking down fugitives across vast distances and jurisdictions. Their specialized skills were now critical. They also judiciously filed subpoenas for Nastasia's social media accounts, knowing that the digital footprint often reveals far more than intentional communication, painting a candid, sometimes damning, picture of a person's life and motivations. When these crucial legally obtained records were finally received and meticulously analyzed, they proved to be also very enlightening, casting a harsh, revealing light on Nastasia's precise motivations and, shockingly, her clear premeditation, eliminating any doubt of a spontaneous act. The content of her messages, once revealed and deciphered, was chillingly direct and unambiguous. She stated that she was looking for a gun from somebody. This was no casual inquiry. It indicated a deliberate, calculated intent to acquire a firearm, shattering any lingering notion of a spontaneous, accidental act of violence. The intent to arm herself prior to encountering Mr. Pearson spoke volumes. Another message, couched in street vernacular, was equally telling and incriminating. Another one was like almost an invitation to another person, like, "Hey, can you come join me to do this lick?" The street slang term lick clearly referred to a robbery or substantial score, an illicit financial windfall, explicitly indicating a planned criminal enterprise, not a chance encounter or an impromptu crime of opportunity. The temporal proximity of these communications to the murder further solidified the picture of A. Cold, calculated plan. In the day before and even the day of Mr. Pearson's death and the time that she was at his house, she was reaching out to multiple people on Facebook, talking about a big lick, kind of big score. The convergence of these communications painted an unmistakable portrait of deliberate intent, far removed from an accidental outcome, establishing beyond doubt a mind intent on felony and, ultimately, murder. A deeper dive into Nastasia's digital persona and her stated material aspirations further underscored the primary motivator for her actions, highlighting a profound, perhaps desperate, materialism. And looking at Nastasia's social media, she liked shiny things. She liked everyone around the Mercedes. She liked to have possessions. This superficial drive for immediate material gratification and status symbols, particularly an expensive vehicle, juxtaposed sharply with her precarious, often illicit financial situation, clarified the underlying impulse behind her criminal enterprise. It led us to believe that primary motivator for what Nastasha did, it was greed, it was money. The psychological profile emerging was one driven by a profound, almost insatiable, desire for immediate acquisition and material goods, overriding any moral or ethical considerations, valuing shiny objects over human life itself. The evidence, meticulously woven together from multiple, disparate sources, text messages, ring footage, social media posts, painted an undeniably clear, cohesive picture. The picture is becoming much more crystal clear that this was a planned event, that this wasn't something that she went there, and it was a crime of passion. She intended to do this, and that she was setting herself up to do this to Mr. Pearson. The narrative was now one of premeditated murder for financial gain, orchestrated by an individual who meticulously planned her heinous act, seeing a wealthy man as merely a target for her insatiable avarice. The desperate manhunt for Nastasha Tate continued, a frantic, global pursuit spanning over 3,000 miles. Investigators held their breath, hoping for a breakthrough, a vital tip that would finally bring the fugitive to justice. But as Natasha Tate's own mother In a moment of agonizing truth-telling, confessed the detective, "I just kept telling her your best bet is to turn yourself in because if you're running from something, it's just going to make it so much worse." The stark wisdom of a mother, however strained the relationship, often cuts to the very core of undeniable truth, recognizing the futility of prolonged escape from consequence. The relentless hunt for Nastasha Tate, a grueling, agonizing month-long saga stretching from the serene Pacific Northwest to the sunny expanses of the Deep South, was fraught with the tantalizing absence of Jimmy Pearson's suspected killer. Investigators had diligently cast their net wide, following every lead, meticulously analyzing every digital breadcrumb and every physical clue, but Nastasha, with her practiced transience and honed skill at evading capture, remained frustratingly out of reach, a phantom in the vast American landscape, seemingly dissolving into anonymity. Yet, on a pivotal April 7th, in 2021, the seemingly insurmountable distance and the deepening mystery began to close dramatically as investigators finally received a crucial, game-changing lead that redirected their focus to a specific, telltale object. The fugitive's coveted Mercedes, an object of her stated desire for shiny things, and a conspicuous symbol of the material gain she, so desperately craved, ultimately proved to be her unwitting betrayer. Law enforcement agencies, meticulously alerted to its distinct description, had circulated a bulletin across multiple states, ensuring every officer was on the lookout. They put out this notice to all law enforcement they're looking for this Mercedes. The wide-ranging net finally tightened when the vehicle, having traveled thousands of miles cross-country in a frantic attempt at escape, unexpectedly ends up getting towed in Portland. This was a moment of sheer, almost cinematic serendipity, a seemingly mundane bureaucratic event holding immense, indeed life-altering, consequence for a high-stakes homicide investigation. The detective handling the primary case, upon learning of the tow, immediately recognized its paramount importance and issued a rapid, unequivocal directive, made a call to the impound, and said, "Do not release this vehicle to anybody. We're going to come down and get it." In a further twist of fate that underscored the unfolding drama and heightened the tension, even as the tow company secured the vehicle, an unexpected party arrived at the lot, attempting to reclaim it. That's when we were told that someone else had arrived and was trying to get the vehicle released. To them, this individual turned out to be a friend of Nastasha Tate's, a woman identified as Monique. The tow company, now keenly aware of a vehicle's significance to a major homicide investigation due to the detective's urgent call, prudently asked her to stick around, and detectives wanted to talk to her. Monique, under immediate questioning, corroborated a critical detail that offered the next invaluable lead in the increasingly intricate puzzle. Monique claimed she bought the car from Nastasha a month prior. Her story was straightforward, explaining her legal claim to the vehicle, yet its implications reached far beyond a simple transaction. Nastasha, she said, had informed her she was going to leave town, and she said, "I'll take you." The detective, keenly focused on the ultimate objective of locating Nastasha, directly inquired, probing for any geographical clues. I stated, "Okay, do you know where Nastasha is now?" Monique, perhaps initially protective or genuinely unsure of precise details, replied that she didn't know where she was. However, she did offer another invaluable piece of information, an almost casual admission that would ignite a new, geographical phase of pursuit, broadening the hunt across the entire country. But she and her boyfriend had driven Nastasha to a bus stop on March 11th. This clearly placed Nastasha on the move, intentionally attempting to further distance herself from the crime scene and obscure her tracks. Through anonymous public transport, the detective pressed for further specifics, seeking a clearer destination or trajectory. Did she see where she was headed? But Monique's memory or willingness to fully cooperate was limited in that particular moment. perhaps fearing repercussions or truly lacking detailed information about Nastash's precise itinerary. What she did reveal, however, was crucial in its implications, setting the stage for an unprecedented cross-country pursuit, a monumental task for law enforcement. According to Monique, Nastasha had an unexpected and profoundly telling change of plans after leaving Oregon, betraying a deeper level of panic and urgency. She did call me a couple of days after she left, and she was in Florida. The mere mention of Florida, a vast expanse over 3,000 miles away from a crime scene in Oregon, dramatically transformed the scope and complexity of the investigation, adding a new layer of difficulty and logistical challenge. Furthermore, Monique detected a profound shift in Nastasha's demeanor, a psychological indicator of deep distress, fear, and profound guilt. She was being really weird, and I kept saying, "What's wrong? What did you do?" Nastasha's responses were cryptic, evasive, and laced with an almost primal urgency, revealing a desperate, unhinged need to escape the consequences of her actions. She was like, "I can't tell you. I just got to get away. I just got to get away." The language was unequivocal, the behavior deeply suspicious, screaming of a dark secret and an overwhelming desire for flight. Monique also explained the formidable challenges in maintaining communication with the now fugitive. Detectives asked if there was any way that we could get a hold of her to try to track her down. Monique said that there really wasn't any clear way to get a hold of her because her number was changing and she was communicating on a Wi-Fi only phone. Learning that Nastasha Tate was now potentially in Florida definitely added some complexity to the investigation. The sheer geographical distance was immense, stretching investigative resources and patience to their limits. We couldn't be further away in Oregon from Florida. This now demanded seamless, rapid interagency cooperation across the entire continent. A symphony of coordinated law enforcement efforts that spanned federal, state, and local agencies, all working to close the net. Just 2 days later, a mere 48 hours after receiving the critical Florida lead, as detectives in Oregon worked assiduously with Florida police, coordinating their efforts to precisely pinpoint Nastasha's elusive location, a pivotal and emotionally charged moment occurred. Her mother, Teresa Tate, in a decision fraught with agonizing maternal conflict, but ultimately driven by a desperate, heartbreaking hope for her daughter's eventual accountability, contacted them, requesting a meeting. Her request came with a specific, revealing condition. She didn't want us to meet at her residence. She said she didn't want her neighbors to see her talking to the police. This revealed Teresa's profound discomfort and emotional strain, caught painfully between her daughter's desperate plight and her own sense of community standing and potential social repercussions. Understanding the delicacy of the situation and the critical nature of gaining her trust, detectives complied immediately and discreetly. So we met her in some parking lot at a shopping center, a neutral, inconspicuous location designed to offer privacy. In this quiet, suburban setting, Teresa Tate finally revealed the full truth, confessing to a deliberate, painful deception she had maintained previously. She informed us that she had been communicating periodically with her daughter Nastasha, even though she told us she had been hearing from her. Her earlier denial stemmed from a powerful, visceral mother's protective instinct, a desperate, fading hope to shield her child from the crushing weight of the law. Teresa then, with a heavy heart, explained the content of their clandestine, intermittent communications, revealing her efforts to guide Nastasha towards accountability, a mother's last desperate attempt at intervention. Teresa explains that she's been trying to convince her daughter to turn herself in. Her words, born of hard-won wisdom from a life lived and observed, were direct and uncompromising, a blend of profound maternal concern and stark realism about the criminal justice system. I just kept telling her, your best bet is to get your expletive taken care of and turn yourself in, whatever it is, because if you're running from something, it's just going to make it so much worse. This unwavering motherly advice, while perhaps blunt in its delivery, was a sincere, agonizing effort to guide Nastasha toward the only viable path to avoid an even graver future, to face the consequences now before they became impossibly entangled in a web of deceit and further. Flight. Hoping to finally pin down the fugitive's elusive location and leverage this crucial familial bond, detectives cautiously yet firmly asked Teresa to make contact with Nastasha. Understanding the inherent emotional cost of such a request, the profound and difficult role they were asking a mother to play, it was a morally complex proposition, asking a mother to essentially aid in the capture of her own child, to engage in an act of profound betrayal for the sake of justice. But Teresa, despite the deep pain, recognized the inescapable reality of the situation and the diminishing options available to her. Daughter, I'd be fine with that, because that's the only way we're going to get her, and she needs to be bought. At this point, she stated, making the difficult decision to assist. Her internal struggle was profoundly evident, etched on her face, yet her resolve for justice, or at least for her daughter to face the inevitable consequences of her actions, was firm, a testament to her sense of moral duty despite overwhelming emotional conflict. As much as it just feels so against the grain, I know it's the right thing to do for her anyway. The stage was set for a difficult, yet absolutely necessary, act of profound cooperation that would ultimately bring Nastasha to justice. The plan was executed with swift, surgical precision, leveraging both human cooperation and the cutting edge of technological prowess. We left, and then a short time after we parted the company, she contacts Deputy Sanders, who was on the U.S. Marshals Task Force, and they'll say, "Hey, FYI, she contacted me on the phone." This immediate notification, a testament to Teresa's difficult but critical cooperation, provided the golden thread, a fresh, active phone number for the fugitive. So then we knew that that was a good number that we could use to try to track her. Once that phone number was secured, the next steps were immediate and technically sophisticated. A textbook example of modern digital forensics and surveillance. Once they get that phone number and they do what's called a trap and trace and determine that she was in a bus stop not that far from the Tampa Bay Police Department. The precision of modern technology had miraculously whittled down an entire continent into a single, identifiable, very localized area, an incredible feat of electronic triangulation. A Tampa Bay police officer, discreetly dispatched to the specified bus stop, found Nastasha Tate exactly where the digital forensics had so accurately predicted. Her appearance made her readily identifiable, even in a bustling public space. A distinctive figure in any crowd, fulfilling the criteria for a visual confirmation. She stands out a little bit. She's got an unusual look to her, and some tattoo on her face that's somewhat recognizable. Another crucial detail, a visual link directly to the crime scene itself, further confirmed her identity beyond doubt. Nastasha is carrying the same sweatshirt. This was not just any sweatshirt. It was a very distinct hoodie with some words on it. Bougie or something along that line. This unique item, prominently seen in the Ring doorbell footage from Jimmy's house, solidified the positive identification for the local officers, erasing any lingering ambiguity. Understanding the extreme gravity of the situation and the inherent risks of apprehending a murder suspect, the detectives got to keep an open mind of possibility of fight or struggle. However, a more cautious, covert approach was initially taken to minimize risk. They covertly took a picture of her in the area and sent it to detectives, ensuring absolute certainty before making a move. The image landed swiftly in the hands of the Oregon investigators, a ping from 3,000 miles away that confirmed their long-sought target. They sent to me, "Hey, is this her?" And I was able to positively identify that that was her. The final, authoritative confirmation was issued, cutting through any remaining ambiguity. At that point I told them, yeah, that's her. With her identity confirmed and her precise location secured, The moment of truth had dramatically arrived. Once they confirmed that that was her, she was, cooperative. They then took her into custody. The multi-state manhunt, fueled by relentless investigative work and unparalleled interagency collaboration, had finally reached its dramatic, decisive conclusion, bringing a perpetrator to accountability. The news traveled fast, bringing a profound sense of relief to the weary investigators. I was told she's in custody, and travel arrangements were made for myself and my partner, Detective Michael Zacher, to fly out to Tampa, Florida, immediately. The flight across the country represented the final journey towards justice for Jimmy Pearson. The journey to Tampa, a whirlwind of logistics, anticipatory adrenaline, and intense professional focus, brought the Oregon detectives face-to-face with a woman accused of Jimmy Pearson's murder, an encounter long sought. We went to an interview room, and Nastasha was brought to us. The encounter, for Nastasha, was an inevitable reckoning, the inescapable consequence of her actions, and her initial response was terse, revealing a mix of resignation, defensiveness, and a calculated desire to control the narrative. The lead detective, with seasoned composure and a clear understanding of legal protocol, laid out the stakes clearly and unambiguously. I was like a quarter point of blame. I just want you to be aware that once we leave, that's basically our opportunity to tell us what happened, until travel. Her reply was immediate, clipped, and unequivocally dismissive, a stone wall of non-cooperation. Yeah, I just don't like this interview. This initial stone wall of silence, this strategic retreat into non-engagement, was typical of individuals facing grave accusations. A psychological defense mechanism often employed to avoid self-incrimination or to buy time to construct a more favorable narrative, however untrue. Nastasha Tate was formally charged with first-degree robbery and second-degree murder, charges that accurately reflected the premeditated nature of the crime and the accompanying extensive theft from the victim's home, while she was being meticulously processed and extradited across the country, slowly making her way back to Oregon to face the full weight of justice. Jimmy's family finally received the news they had desperately awaited: the arrest of their father's suspected killer. We were so excited, it was like we were the lottery. It was a moment of profound, almost cathartic relief, a shimmering glimmer of hope after a month of agonizing uncertainty, a long-awaited crack in the solid wall of their grief. However, as the detectives revealed the identity of the suspect, a new wave of shock and profound disbelief washed over them, quickly dampening their nascent relief with a new, unsettling reality. They did give us the name, and then we, started looking it up because we'd never seen her before. The visual details of Nastasha Tate were jarring and deeply unsettling to Jimmy's daughters, Sarah and Tanya, conflicting with their mental image of their father's associates. She had 2 tattoos on her forehead. This specific detail immediately, powerfully conflicted with their idealized understanding of their father and his social circle. There's no way. Dad hated tattoos. Dad did not associate with those kind of people. This visceral, almost desperate reaction spoke volumes about their idealized image of their father and their profound psychological difficulty in reconciling it with the harsh reality of his tragic, sordid end. And there's just no way. We didn't believe it. The human psyche often struggles intensely to accept truths that contradict deeply held beliefs, especially concerning loved ones, as it forces a painful and difficult reevaluation of reality and identity. After a grueling month-long investigation, marked by meticulous detail, relentless pursuit, and sophisticated forensic work, 23-year-old Nastasha Tate had been successfully apprehended and charged for the brutal murder of Jimmy Pearson. As prosecutors diligently began the meticulous preparation of their formidable case for trial, the accumulating evidence against her continued to grow, strengthening with each new forensic report and corroborating testimony. creating an undeniable mountain of proof. The forensic analysis, so crucial in establishing undeniable scientific links, delivered conclusive and damning results. All of the evidence from the ballistics are all indicating the gun that was in her car 12 minutes after she left the house is the gun that caused his death. This scientific certainty, the undeniable match between the bullet recovered from the victim and the firearm seized from the suspect shortly after the crime, effectively removed any lingering doubt about the murder weapon, cementing the direct, irrefutable connection between Nastasha Tate and the fatal shot that senselessly ended Jimmy Pearson's life. Prosecutors firmly believed that the shooting was not a random act of passion, a spontaneous outburst of violence in a moment of emotional chaos, but rather part of a premeditated plan, carefully conceived and ruthlessly executed for purely personal gain. They acknowledged Nastasha's difficult and often tragic past, a history that, while in no way serving as an excuse for the heinous crime committed, offered a glimpse into profound societal forces that might have shaped her choices and, tragically, warped her worldview. She, as the evidence would indicate, was influenced and manipulated and trafficked in her past. This candid recognition of her deeply challenging history highlighted a potential struggle for agency and autonomy, a life lived under the shadow of exploitation and hardship, and this was her one opportunity to turn things around and take control on her own. However, this opportunity, tragically, was violently framed by a singular, destructive need that eclipsed any moral compass or ethical consideration. But she needed money to do that. This motive, rooted in financial desperation and a misguided, ultimately criminal quest for self-sufficiency through illicit means, painted a dark and complex psychological portrait of a life driven by challenging circumstances and, ultimately, by ruthless greed. But as the ominous court date approached, with the formidable weight of forensic evidence and compelling circumstantial details arrayed against her, creating an almost unassailable case, Nastasha Tate, under the guidance of legal counsel, opted to pursue a plea bargain instead of facing the daunting prospect of a full trial before a jury. This decision was a strategic calculation, a cold assessment of risks and potential outcomes by both the defense and the prosecution. If we were to go to trial, we might not be able to prove the first-degree murder, the prosecution openly acknowledged, reflecting the nuanced challenges of a justice system demanding absolute certainty in the absence of direct eyewitness testimony. The legal challenge stemmed from the lack of a direct eyewitness account of the precise moment of the murder itself. Since we don't have any eyewitnesses as to what actually happened in there, it's all circumstantial evidence. While the circumstantial evidence was undeniably powerful and cohesive, capable of securing a conviction in a courtroom setting, it could sometimes leave just enough room for a cunning defense to sow seeds of doubt and make a first-degree conviction, requiring premeditation beyond all reasonable doubt, more challenging. Therefore, a compromise was reached, a grim but legally sound solution that ensured conviction and substantial incarceration, thereby guaranteeing justice for the victim. We came to agreement that she would plead to the second-degree murder, which is also a true life sentence, but with consideration of parole after 25 years. This agreement guaranteed a conviction and a significant, lengthy incarceration while potentially mitigating the absolute certainty required for the higher charge of first-degree murder, ensuring an undeniable outcome. A key condition of the plea deal, however, was Nastasha's willingness to finally break her persistent silence and offer a narrative of what transpired that fateful night in Jimmy Pearson's home. We said that we would be fine with doing that plea if she would give us a statement as to what happened and how it happened and why it happened. This was an opportunity not just for legal closure, but more profoundly for the grieving family to gain some understanding, however incomplete or unsatisfying, of the profound, irreparable loss, to perhaps comprehend the incomprehensible, In December 2021, months after her apprehension, and following the plea agreement, Nastasha Tate, as per the arrangement, provided Jimmy's family with a statement, a confession of sorts, though meticulously constructed to mitigate her culpability and paint her actions in a more accidental light, a common psychological defense mechanism. Her statement was that she had been up a few nights on a binger drinking and doing drugs, and that when she had gotten over there, they had a drink, and then they had went to the room and had a drink in there, and then she was going to give them a back massage, and she reached down into her bag and pulled out a gun, and he moved, and it went off, and then she panicked and didn't know what to do. This carefully crafted narrative sought to establish an accidental discharge, fueled by intoxication and fear, rather than deliberate malice. She claims that it was an accident, yet she robbed him still and fled. The glaring, undeniable inconsistency between her claim of a mere accident and her subsequent actions, the thorough ransacking of the home for valuables and her immediate, frantic flight across the country, however, directly contradicted her narrative, as the investigators and family were quick to point out with incredulity and scorn. If it was truly an accident, you probably would have made different choices. They reflected, highlighting the clear, self-serving nature of her story, a thinly veiled attempt to evade full responsibility, the compelling social media evidence of her looking for a gun prior to the event, the meticulous ransacking of the home, the deliberate act of wearing gloves, and her planned, expedited departure, all fundamentally dismantled the flimsy claim of a chaotic, drunken mishap, pointing instead to a cold, calculated crime. She was looking for a gun. It's not self-defense. It's not an accident. It's something that was motivated by money and greed. Sarah, Jimmy's daughter, encapsulated the family's profound certainty, speaking with a raw, searing honesty of unbearable loss and an unwavering conviction in her father's character. I don't believe it was even the truth of actually how things went down. I think it was premeditated, 100%. The depth of their pain was immeasurable, the void left by his absence acute and agonizing, resonating with every member of the family. She took away my dad. She took away my best friend, the one that I looked up to, my kid's grandfather that they'll never get to know. She took away our future with him. The words articulated the agonizing, irreplaceable void left by Nastash's actions, a permanent, gaping wound in the fabric of their lives, and future that was cruelly stolen. And, yes, it's horrible, something you can't get back. For Sarah, the prospect of directly confronting her father's killer in person remained a complex, deeply personal struggle, an internal debate between a yearning for direct answers and the fierce desire to deny the perpetrator any further power or acknowledgement. Sometimes I think about setting up a time to go and see her in prison and ask her for myself, face to face. But then I go back and don't want to give her that time of day. Maybe someday I will. This internal conflict speaks to the prolonged agony of grief, the push and pull between seeking a painful closure and the understandable instinct to protect oneself from further emotional trauma, choosing a quiet form of self-preservation. Jimmy Pearson, the man at the heart of this tragedy, deserved to be remembered not for the violent, sordid circumstances of his death, nor for the complexities of his personal life, which tragically exposed him to danger, but for the vibrant, ambitious, and impactful life he led. Jimmy should be remembered as someone to aspire to on so many levels, as a father figure, as an entrepreneur, a business owner. There are a lot of outstanding qualities one would aspire to. Beyond his considerable material success and acute business acumen, he possessed an innate goodness, a fundamental generosity of spirit that resonated deeply with those who knew him well. Jimmy was a truly compassionate and kind soul in giving. His legacy, a testament to his resilience, his unwavering entrepreneurial spirit, and his profound work ethic, continued vibrantly through his most cherished possessions and projects, his pawn shops, now nurtured by his devoted daughters, his daughters that have now taken over A1 Hawk. They completely lived by his life with everything. Their dedication to his memory was not merely symbolic. It was tangible and deeply ingrained in their daily operations, a profound commitment to keeping his vision alive. The businesses ran the same exact way that Jim ran it, even listening to the same radio station for the past 8 years. It was a profound act of honoring his memory, a living monument to his enduring influence, a way to keep his spirit alive within the very heart of his creations, carrying his torch forward. In their shared, profound grief, his daughters found an unbreakable bond, forged in the crucible of unbearable loss, drawing strength from one another. My sister and I, having sickened together, and as much as it's hard, especially both being hurt, that we just have to stick together. Despite the unbearable weight of their sorrow, they drew strength from his enduring presence, a guiding force that transcended physical absence, a spiritual connection that sustained them. Dad is still teaching us from up above. They believe, carrying his lessons, his wisdom, and his love forward in their lives and their business. Their memories, vibrant, cherished, and rich with affection, became a constant source of comfort amidst the pain, a treasure trove of laughter and love. We think about all the good memories that we had with our dad. He will never be forgotten. His essence, his spirit, his indelible mark on their lives lingered, a constant, comforting presence that defied the finality of death. I don't think that there's an hour that goes by that he doesn't cross my mind. The tragic narrative of Jimmy Pearson's murder and the meticulous, dedicated efforts of law enforcement to bring his killer to justice serves as a poignant, cautionary reminder of both the darkness that can lurk within human hearts when greed overtakes, empathy, and the unwavering resolve of justice to prevail. It highlights the critical importance of community awareness, the intricate pathways of modern forensic detection, the resilience of investigative forces, and the profound, enduring power of familial love in the face of unspeakable sorrow. It is a testament to the ultimate triumph of good, even when shadowed by the most heinous of evils, an inspiration for continued vigilance and unwavering commitment to truth, peace, and the enduring human spirit. The world, in its often deceptive calm, holds within its intricate fabric threads of profound peace and sudden, jarring violence. March 3rd, 2021, presented just such a stark contrast, where the veneer of tranquility was brutally torn asunder. In the serene, affluent embrace of Clackamas County, Oregon, a narrative began to unfold that would ultimately span continents, delving deep into the intricate psychology of human desire, desperation, and the ultimate price of unchecked avarice. It was a crisp morning, as precise as the digital readout on the clock indicated. Exactly 11:28 a.m. when the piercing, urgent squawk of a 911 call sliced through the quietude of a sprawling waterfront home. The voice on the other end, strained with a palpable mixture of shock and dawning horror, reported a discovery that would irrevocably alter the landscape of several lives, particularly those of the wealthy entrepreneur, Jimmy Pearson, and the beloved family he had so diligently built and nurtured. "How can I help you?" The dispatcher's voice, a calm, anchoring presence in what was rapidly brewing into a storm of profound human tragedy, must have seemed almost unreal, detached from the visceral terror. To the caller, Tony Morrell, the voice identified, delivered a statement that, in its halting urgency, would quickly escalate from a simple welfare check to a full-blown homicide investigation, echoing the abrupt, horrifying transition from peaceful mourning to bloody tableau. "I came over my boss's house, and I found him," and he said. The phrase hung incomplete, heavy with unspoken dread, a fragment hinting at an unimaginable horror witnessed by a loyal friend and employee. The dispatcher, with practice efficiency honed by countless calls to the precipice of human suffering, sought immediate clarity through standard protocol. "Okay, is he cold for the tough drive, Steph?" The very clinical nature of the question, stripping away emotional preamble to focus on critical physical indicators. underscored the absolute gravity of the situation. This was not merely an accident or an illness, but a crime scene, signaling that the individual in question was tragically beyond the reach of emergency medical intervention, already claimed by an unseen hand. Mr. Morrell, it transpired, was far more than just an employee. He was a friend, a confidant, a long-standing associate to the 62-year-old Jimmy Pearson. His concern had mounted steadily over several preceding days, an unsettling quietude descending from Mr. Pearson, a man typically engaged, gregarious, and vital, someone whose absence from communication was profoundly out of character, a red flag flapping gently in the winds of unease. It was an anomaly that, to Tony, felt fundamentally wrong, an intuition that soon gave way to grim reality. What he discovered upon gaining entry to the opulent, upscale residence on the serene Willamette River, however, surpassed any premonition, catapulting him from mild concern into an abyss of unadulterated shock and horror. Mr. Pearson was found naked, a deeply disturbing detail in itself, revealing a state of profound vulnerability and unexpected intimacy, but far more alarming, overwhelmingly horrifying, was the sight of blood all pooling on his head. The raw, visceral sight, the crimson stain spreading across what had been a personal sanctuary, was enough to induce immediate flight. Mr. Morrell, overcome by a primal surge of fear and a desperate, instinctual need to distance himself from the horror, exited the opulent residence with haste, his breath catching his throat, and immediately placed that fateful call to 911. The instinct to remove himself, to establish a safe perimeter before summoning aid, speaks to the profound, disorienting shock a layman experiences upon encountering such an unthinkable scene. His cooperation, however, would prove invaluable to the burgeoning investigation. This initial call, an urgent cry for help amidst a backdrop of unimaginable tragedy, was swiftly dispatched to Deputy Fredrickson, one of the dedicated patrol deputies whose daily duty it was to respond to the myriad crises, both mundane and macabre, that punctuate everyday life in Clackamas County. Upon arrival, the scene itself was a testament to Mr. Pearson's remarkable success, a poignant and stark contrast to the unfolding tragedy. It was a very nice home in a very nice neighborhood, an environment typically synonymous with tranquility, affluence, an ingrained expectation of security. The grand driveways of these residences, emblematic of their exclusivity, were formidable, often gated and requiring a specific, intimate code for entry. This immediately suggested an element of exclusivity, reinforcing the idea that whoever gained access to this domain was either expected and invited, thereby suggesting an internal dynamic to the crime, or possessed a clandestine, illegal means to circumvent these formidable layers of security, thereby indicating either an inside job or a highly sophisticated break-in, a challenge for even the most adept criminal. The home itself was described as very nice and very large, a statement of material comfort and sprawling luxury that now, chillingly, framed a scene of stark brutality, inadvertently becoming a stage for a deeply personal drama that had turned irrevocably macabre. Deputy Fredrickson, a man whose professional life was often spent confronting life's uglier, more challenging aspects, entered the master bedroom with the practiced caution of a seasoned officer, his senses on high alert. There, the grim tableau presented itself. An unresponsive male victim, later confirmed to be Jimmy Pearson, lying lifeless on the opulent bed. His position was unnerving, unsettlingly peaceful, yet deeply disturbing in its implications. Face down with his hands kind of up over his head, tucked up under his pillows. This peculiar, almost relaxed, posture would later become a critical piece of the puzzle for investigators, hinting at the suddenness of the assault, suggesting the victim was likely in a state of deep relaxation, possibly even sleep, or caught entirely off guard, and certainly indicating the absence of any anticipatory struggle. He didn't see it coming, a fact that would become central to the psychological profile of the crime. The visible presence of blood around his head area on the bed was unmistakable, painting a vivid and horrifying picture that no amount of wealth, luxury, or pristine surroundings could possibly obscure. A crimson stain on the pristine linen, symbolizing the brutal, irreversible interruption of life. A swift and practiced search of the immediate bedroom area was conducted, adhering meticulously to standard protocols for securing and initially assessing a potential crime scene, which quickly confirmed the victim's identity. Deputy Fredrickson efficiently located a wallet on the nightstand, which had an ID card in it. The identification card bore the name Jimmy Pearson, and its image appeared to match the deceased person on the bed, solidifying the grim reality that the homeowner, the man of this opulent abode, was indeed the victim of this sudden violent end. In those initial adrenaline-charged moments, Deputy Fredrickson, observing the significant volume of blood, prudently considered various possibilities, allowing his training to guide his rapid assessment. He moved one of the pillows to see if there was any firearm, operating under professional hunch that, because the amount of blood, I think he was guessing that it may have been a gunshot wound. The sheer volume and pattern of the blood initially obscured the precise nature of the injury, leaving the question open as to its origin and, crucially, whether it was self-inflicted. He couldn't determine where the blood was coming from, and he didn't know if it was self-inflicted. This brief window of uncertainty, however, would soon give way to chilling clarity as more expert eyes arrived to peel back the layers of the tragedy. After this preliminary sweep of the scene, a critical observation was made that immediately altered the trajectory of initial suspicions, shifting the focus decisively toward foul play. No weapon is located. This was a pivotal finding, almost instantaneously ruling out the possibility of suicide, despite the fleeting consideration of a self-inflicted wound based on the nature of the injury. People, with very rare and highly unusual exceptions that often involve elaborate, often physically impossible, staging, do not typically shoot themselves and then effectively erase the weapon from the immediate scene. This absence screamed of foul play, indicating a perpetrator had removed a crucial piece of evidence. However, other disquieting signs presented themselves throughout the expansive home, indicative of what looks like a break-in. The phrase, though understated in its formal police reporting, spoke volumes of chaotic intent and desperate opportunism. The entire house had been ransacked, drawers opened, things obviously missing, like someone had gone through just about every room and looked through everything. The meticulous disarray of the opulent home, a violent undoing of order, painted a picture not of targeted violence alone, but of a crime compounded by blatant opportunism and theft, suggesting a desperate grab for any and all valuables within reach, blurring the lines between murder and larceny. Homicide detectives, the seasoned veterans of such macabre puzzles, arrived swiftly, their methodical presence a stark counterpoint to the chaotic scene. Their entry was followed by the solemn procession of the medical examiner, whose expert I would soon begin to unravel the physiological narrative of Jimmy Pearson's final moments, meticulously gathering scientific evidence where visual and circumstantial clues left frustrating gaps. The first sensory detail that struck them upon entering the master bedroom was profoundly unsettling, a grim indicator of the inexorable passage of time, a really pungent smell of decomposition. This indicated, with grim scientific certainty, that Mr. Pearson had been dead for several days. The revelation instantly added another layer of complexity to the nascent investigation, challenging the one of the crime, a factor as critical and elusive as the how and the who. This meant a crucial window of initial, fresh evidence might have been lost, complicating the vital reconstruction of the timeline. As the medical examiner meticulously began their preliminary inspection of the body, exercising the utmost care not to disturb potential trace evidence, the nature of the injury became horrifyingly clear. They did find what appeared to be a bullet wound to the back of the deceased's head. This singular, stark detail extinguished any lingering possibility of suicide or an accidental death, immediately and unequivocally reclassifying the case as a probable homicide. While definitive confirmation always awaits a full pathological examination in the controlled environment of a morgue, we weren't going to be able to 100% say that he died of a homicide. The immediate operational response from the law enforcement team was unwavering and absolute, but we were treating it as a homicide. The investigative axiom articulated by the officers themselves was chillingly pertinent, bordering on a gallows humor that only experienced detectives, hardened by their work, truly understand. People, when they commit suicide, don't typically shoot themselves in the back of the head. This logical deduction, simple yet profoundly powerful, combined with the earlier observation of the absence of a weapon, underscored a calculated malice and sinister intent inherent in the act. The sudden, violent end to a life, perpetrated from behind, suggested something far more insidious than despair or a moment of accidental tragedy. The initial stages of any complex homicide investigation are often riddled with what detectives, with weary resignation, refer to as a lot of unknowns. The sheer volume of questions, both immediate and long-term, from the trivial to the profound, can be daunting and overwhelming. The critical first step, therefore, was to establish a timeline, to discover with as much precision as possible when something occurred. This required casting a wide net, an empathetic yet methodical outreach, reaching out to family, friends, anybody that can give us an indication of where they've been, what they've been doing, and who they've been spending time with. In the shadowy, often fragmented world of criminal investigation, every shred of information, every casual memory, every seemingly insignificant interaction held the potential to illuminate the path forward, a mosaic of disparate data points slowly, but surely forming a cohesive picture of the victim's final days and hours. The victim's life story, his past, his present relationships, and his habits now became inextricably linked with the pursuit of justice for his untimely and violent end, an open book for the cold, analytical gaze of the investigators. Jimmy Pearson, born on a warm August 19th, in 1957, hailed from Dearborn, Michigan. He was one of 4 siblings, navigating a home life that was, in the words of those who knew it, anything but perfect. This familial complexity, marked by early struggles and a sense of instability, was dominated by his father, Al Pearson, who had once been a figure of public renown, having played professional hockey for the esteemed Detroit Red Wings. Such a background often implies glamour, but in their case, it also carried a deep, pervasive shadow. His father was an alcoholic, so that put a damper on his mom and his relationship. The insidious disease of addiction, as it so often does, cast a long and destructive pall over their family dynamics, eroding trust and stability, ultimately leading to the fracturing of the nuclear unit. Jimmy's mother, a woman of profound resilience and fortitude, confronted these harsh realities head-on, taking decisive action, and ended up divorcing his dad when he was very young. This early exposure to familial strife and separation, to a world that didn't always conform to idyllic expectations, to the stark realities of a broken home, would undoubtedly shape young Jimmy's outlook on life and forge within him a profound, enduring drive for stability, success, and perhaps control over his own destiny. Faced with the daunting challenge of raising 4 children on her own, a task requiring immense strength and sacrifice, Jimmy's mother made a courageous, decisive decision. She moved them to Oregon in search of a fresh start, a testament to her unwavering determination to build a better, more secure life, a new chapter for her progeny away from past traumas. In this new landscape, however, economic realities were harsh, demanding relentless effort and a deep understanding of self-reliance. She had 4 kids, so she spent a lot of hours at work, and they pretty much had to fend for themselves. This era of profound self-reliance, born of necessity and the stark imperative of survival, instilled in Jimmy an extraordinary, almost innate, work ethic and an early, intuitive understanding of financial independence and personal responsibility, teaching him to seize opportunities. He saw his mom working all the time, so he thought he could help out. Even at a tender age, Jimmy exhibited an impressive entrepreneurial spirit, a budding talent for enterprise, proactively mowing lawns, doing whatever he could to provide to bring in money. These formative years, marked by hard work, ingenuity, and self-sufficiency, sculpted a young man of grit, ambition, and a deep-seated desire for both personal security and significant financial achievement, values that would define his adult life. By his early 20s, Jimmy Pearson had matured into a hard-working, ambitious young man, ready to start a family of his own. His trajectory seemed clear, a man determined to forge his own path, consciously distinct from the tumultuous beginnings of his childhood, aspiring to create the stability he lacked growing up. It was in this period that he encountered Sandra, a meeting that would blossom into a shared future, painting a picture of youthful promise and new beginnings. I met Jimmy in the summer that I turned 18, and I met him at the houseboat, Sandra recounted, her voice carrying the wistful echoes of cherished, foundational memories. Their introduction was casual, almost cinematic in its simplicity and everyday charm. My sister was dating somebody who was a good friend of Jimmy's. Life's serendipitous moments, those seemingly minor convergences, often lead to profound, life-altering connections, laying the groundwork for a shared history that would ripple through decades. Following the commencement of their courtship, Jimmy, ever the nascent entrepreneur, embarked upon his first professional venture, a testament to his innate business acumen and relentless drive to build something of his own. He had opened up Hawkeye Trading Post by Sell Trade. This initial foray was not merely a job or a temporary occupation. It was his first little foot in the door to being in the pawn shop business, a domain where he would eventually find considerable, even astonishing, success and amass substantial wealth, carving a unique niche for himself. The pawn business, often viewed with skepticism or even disdain by outsiders, appealed deeply to his pragmatic nature and his acute ability to see hidden value where others saw only discarded items, a knack for recognizing untapped potential. Jimmy and Sandra's relationship deepened, culminating in their marriage in 1987, and together they welcomed 2 children into the world, solidifying their shared dream of a family. Yet, the very dedication and tireless drive that fueled Jimmy's entrepreneurial endeavors would inadvertently cast a shadow on his family life, a common paradox of unrelenting ambition. Jimmy was a good father when he was around, Sandra thoughtfully reflected, highlighting the painful dichotomy that many work-focused individuals face. Because he worked a lot like he would leave in the morning and sometimes not come back until 1 or 2 in the morning. His tireless commitment to work, while laudable in its intent to provide and build a secure future, inevitably placed a profound strain on the familial fabric. A sacrifice often unrecognized until the irreparable damage is done and memories of missed moments accumulate. The dissolution of their marriage was not a singular, dramatic event, but rather a slow, almost imperceptible erosion, a collection of various, multifaceted factors that, over time, became insurmountable. There's not one thing that led to the divorce. It was a lot of different things. In a remarkably mature and amicable parting, especially considering the emotional complexities and potential acrimony of marital separation, it was a mutual agreement that it was better for us to split. Notably, their relationship transcended the traditional bitterness and animosity that often accompanies marital dissolution. However, when we got divorced, we still were friends, a testament to their mutual respect, their shared history, and most importantly, their enduring commitment to their children. This maintained connection, the strong thread of enduring friendship, would prove crucial later, as Jimmy's family would become central to understanding his life and, tragically, the precise circumstances surrounding his death. It painted a picture of a man who, despite personal setbacks, could maintain vital relationships, even with those from his past. For a few years following the divorce, Jimmy, ever present in his children's lives and committed to their well-being, continued to reside with his family, maintaining a tangible, supportive presence within their home. However, an unexpected, significant turn of events, rooted in one of his earlier, less conventional business ventures, would momentarily derail his path and bring him into sharp conflict with the law in 1992. This was a significant and public setback, a deviation from his otherwise ascending entrepreneurial trajectory. The DEA came out to our door, at 6 a.m, a dramatic and intrusive awakening that signaled a grave matter, a federal intervention that shattered the morning peace and sent shockwaves through the family. They toted Jimmy out of there within the first half hour. The rapid, authoritative presence of law enforcement was undeniable, and the reason for their stern presence swiftly revealed through the warrant. They had a warrant for his arrest for manufacturing and growing marijuana. This period marked a significant challenge and profound personal crisis in Jimmy's life, a stark reminder of past transgressions. He was subsequently convicted on drug charges, a profound setback that saw him spend 3 years in prison. The experience, while undoubtedly arduous and personally humbling, a period of isolation and reflection, did not break his spirit. Instead, it seems to have further galvanized his resolve to succeed, to prove his worth, and, crucially, to fully reconcile with his loved ones, understanding anew the preciousness of both freedom and family. Upon his release from incarceration, Jimmy was consumed by a singular, powerful desire, an almost desperate need to redeem his past and rebuild his future. He was anxious to reunite with his children and rebuild his pawn business. This fierce, unwavering determination speaks volumes about his resilient character, a man who, despite his failings and the significant time lost to imprisonment, remained deeply committed to his family and his professional aspirations. He quickly secured a new opportunity, demonstrating his inherent business acumen, an unerring eye for a good deal even after a setback, by securing a deal at a place out in Gladstone at Properties. This strategic acquisition became the birthplace of a renewed vision, a triumphant second act for his entrepreneurial spirit. We named it a One Hawk. A One Hawk was not just any establishment. It was a state-licensed pawn shop, engaged in the multifaceted business of buy and sell goods, and also do 90-day collateral loans. The mechanics of the business were straightforward, yet constantly evolving. A dynamic environment perfectly suited to Jimmy's pragmatic and ambitious nature. So, from open to close, we're buying inventory off of customers, or we're selling inventory to customers. It was a world of tangible assets, shrewd negotiations, and a constant ebb and flow of commerce. A world where Jimmy truly thrived, reclaiming his professional identity and economic power. His daughters, Sarah and Tanya, became an integral, cherished part of this new chapter, deeply woven into the very fabric of his revitalized dream, a familial legacy he was consciously building. As soon as his daughters could see over the counter, they came to work with him, a testament to Jimmy's desire to impart his formidable work ethic, his business philosophy, and to include them directly in his growing enterprise. He approached their involvement with both paternal love and a shrewd, practical sense of business, refusing to simply hand them success without effort, teaching them the value of honest labor. We would ask him for money, and he would say, "Well, how many hours have you worked?" This pragmatic response, steeped in the realities of earned income and personal responsibility, taught them invaluable lessons in finance, self-sufficiency, and a direct correlation between effort and reward. Sarah, initially very shy, and I was timid, and I was scared to go out on the sales floor, and ask my dad a question in fear. vividly recalled a pivotal moment of empowerment and character building. Jimmy's guidance was clear and direct, injecting a theatrical bravado into her shy demeanor. He's like, just go in there and tell everybody that there's a new sheriff. There's a new sheriff in town, and act like you own the joint. It was an education not just in the practicalities of business transactions, but in confidence, assertiveness, and owning one's personal and professional space in the world. The business flourished under Jimmy's astute guidance, achieving resounding success that allowed him to expand to 3 locations, solidifying his presence and reputation in the market. By 2021, the culmination of his considerable efforts and lifelong dedication saw Jimmy utilizing the considerable wealth he'd earned to spoil his growing family, particularly as his daughters had started families of their own, and he reveled in the role of a generous grandfather. Despite his significant financial success, Jimmy maintained a grounded, unpretentious demeanor, a reflection of his humble beginnings and a conscious rejection of ostentation. He didn't flaunt wealth. He didn't come off pretentious. His money was, in essence, a tool for enjoyment, for shared experiences, for generosity, and for facilitating a life lived to its fullest, on his own terms. He definitely used his money for fun. His properties, indicative of his success, were nevertheless approached with a sense of awe even by those close to him. He had 2 houses. One was a floating home. One was just on the bank there. And I remember regularly working on a house and just being awestruck, like, how do you attain these properties? These statements paint a consistent picture of a man who found genuine joy in his achievements and shared that joy freely with those he loved, yet held on to an appreciation for his self-made journey. Jimmy seemed like he was happy, a sentiment reinforced by the observation that he was, at his core, a selfless person, someone who found satisfaction in giving back and contributing. His vision for A1 Hawk transcended mere commerce and profit. He aimed for a higher purpose. He wanted it to be known that A1 Hawk wasn't like other pawn shops and to break the stigma behind most standard corporate pawn shops. He sought to imbue his business with a sense of integrity, community, and personal service, distinguishing it from larger, more impersonal corporations and challenging negative stereotypes. But this warm, vibrant portrait of a doting grandfather and an astute, successful entrepreneur was now cruelly shattered, brutally interrupted by an act of incomprehensible violence. He had been found dead inside his sprawling riverfront mansion, and investigators are trying to determine why. The stark, agonizing contrast between the vibrant, successful life he lived and its violent, ignoble end presented a deeply disturbing enigma, one that investigators were now painstakingly attempting to solve, meticulously sifting through the wreckage of a life senselessly taken, seeking to understand the why that fuels all criminal inquiry. The initial absence of key, expected evidence at the immediate crime scene immediately directed the investigative team toward specific, damning conclusions, steering them decisively away from less likely scenarios. There was no firearm located anywhere. There was no shell casing located anywhere. These facts were fundamental, forming an irrefutable foundation for their initial assessment. A forensic truth. A victim with a fatal gunshot wound, yet no weapon present to explain its presence as suicide, pointed unequivocally away from such a self-inflicted act. So that led us to believe that, well, one, he couldn't have killed himself. The logical progression was undeniable, leaving homicide as the only viable explanation. Furthermore, another seemingly innocuous detail began to gather significance. A small clue that hinted at clandestine company and intimate presence. They did find 2 drink cups in the bedroom that most people don't drink out of 2 different glasses of the same type of drink. This strongly suggested the undeniable presence of a second person there, an unseen companion whose existence was now a crucial investigative thread, a silent, damning witness to the events leading up to the murder, someone who had shared a final drink